Well, welcome to the recording for week 4 for Visual Basic. And you can see that week 4 runs September 3rd through 6th. Now week 4 there's a lot of stuff to do in week 4. Now up till this point, weeks 1, 2, and 3, there has not been an awful lot of work. But week 4 is going to require quite a bit more because now we're getting into the programming. Now don't let this confuse you or scare you or anything. You can see lots of this is just talking about the quizzes. So there are 4 quizzes that you have to do, and they all only have about 5 questions each, and there's the exam, and the exam is pretty short. But there are, I think, 4 assignments you have to submit. So of course you're going to submit the Class Connect Writeup. You're going to submit the keywords assignment. That's a real easy assignment. You're going to submit a program that subtracts 2 numbers. That's a fairly easy assignment. You almost copy it line for line from the course. You do a flow control assignment, a do while assignment. So those are both going to be programs. And then you do a name program and a project at the end, larger program. So there's quite a bit of programming to do here, but this is going to get you off starting with how to do programming. So as always, I don't really have any reminders this week, but of course, correct file name is going to be really important as you start moving into things. And assignment directions, I talked about this last week, but I will, if I feel assignments need to have special recordings, then I will do special recordings for some assignments. All right, week 4, let's jump into it. So we're in the fundamentals unit, also it's called the F unit, so you know why it's F hyphen and then the unit. So here we are in fundamentals. In the fundamentals unit, you can see it deals with the essential concepts of Visual Basic. And once you get through unit 1, or the fundamentals unit, I should say, you'll have a lot of basic information about how to do programming. And that's what we'll be working on this week. We're going to look at operators, statements, data types, variables, and conditional statements. It's all of this week's work. So at the end of this whole unit, you'll recite the fundamentals of VisualBasic.net, understand how variables work, comprehend data types, explain how operators are used, understand flow control statements, and write and compile a VB.net program. Now, most of this grading is the same. A few things may have been changed because maybe I took some questions out of quizzes or exams or something like that. If in doubt, always go to the grade book. You can see the exact points for assignments. Now, some definitions. Now, we're going to start looking at things called keywords. And keywords you use in programming, they're words that are reserved, but these are just a few, some glossary type words. So like if words, like if, that's a possibility. If one thing's going to happen, then what else are you going to do? So that's called if then. And we'll mess with that towards the end of this. Like if then, when a program uses if then, he or she is telling the computer what to do if a certain thing happens. So if the sum is 7 or greater, then add 3 to it. So that would be if then. A constant is something that does not change. An operator says someone who does something, but in program, an operator is an action figure. It gets stuff done. So in programming, an operator makes the program do things. A variable in programming is something that can change, or it's a container that holds something and then it can be changed later on. So a variable is opposite of a constant. Now this says down below here in your notes, write 3 sentences with each of these words. Don't worry about that, but you do need to know what all these things mean. Now that wasn't any part of the Class Connect write-up, so we're going to go to section A now. And of course now I'm going to go to the write-up, so the write-up starts with section A. So section A, well first of all you can see in the write-up there are 13 questions rather than the 10 that we usually have. Each one here is worth 1.5 points. So section A, what are the 3 building blocks of VD program? In programming, what are keywords? And what does data type tell the computer? So now let's go into section A. So here we are in section A. And of course, all of us, we speak English, right? And for most of us, that's our native language, meaning the language that we grew up on, that we learned. Well, programming and computers has their own language. VBNet, the language of VBNet, gets translated into native code that computers can understand. So you'll use VBNet and you'll type in like English language words, but then when the program gets compiled, then it gets put into code, native code that the computer can understand. Now, just as like sentences in English, sentences have a verb, subject, and an object, right? Well, in VBNet, we have building blocks that you'll find. And the building blocks, they're operators, types, and keywords. Those are building blocks of a program. And you'll learn how to use each of these. So again, operators, data type, and keywords, those are the building blocks for programming. Now in this section, section A, we're going to learn about keywords, explain how data type is used. So keywords. So keywords in programming are words that are reserved for specific functions and cannot be used for other purposes. So that's the best definition of what a keyword is in programming. Keyword is a word that is reserved for different functions and cannot be used for other purposes. And what is meant by reserved means set aside. So some of the key words, like down here are just four simple ones: if, for, switch, and int. Those are key words. So those cannot be used for variables or for any other purpose except to work within a program. And on keywords, each keyword evokes a particular function or makes a particular thing happen. For instance, the keyword if is used to check whether a condition is one way or not, if it's true or false. That's how that keyword is used. So keywords, you need to know what keywords are. Now here's your first assignment. In this assignment, you're going to look for 10 more keywords, and you're going to make a list of those. So make a list of them as well as their specific function in VisualBasic.net. And you're going to use ones that we have not talked about so far in this unit. Now when you do that search and you've come up with that information, I would call this Fundamental Unit Keywords as the assignment. That way you know exactly what it is, right? Fundamentals Unit Keywords would be the name of this assignment. So this is a pretty easy 20 points. And make sure you look for Visual Basic keywords. And now we're getting into data types. Now data types help identify things. And this talks about a book. Like if you have a book, like on the label of a book on the spine, then you know what the book is about, right? Well, data types, the program has to know what kind of data it will contain, so that's why they use data types. So this says a data type is a set of values that allow operations on those values. But the question in the Class Connect write-up says, what does the data type tell the computer? Well, data type tells the computer what kind of data it will contain. So you create the data type for variables. Okay, we want this variable to be an alpha variable, meaning it'll accept words, or variable to be integer, meaning it'll accept numbers. So the answer to the Class Connect write-up is the use of a data type is to tell a computer what kind of data it will contain. Now in math, there are certain data types like integers and decimal numbers, right? So we have to tell the computer that to expect an integer, and the keyword for integer is int. Now there are different types of data types. There's a value type and a reference type. Now the value type would be the actual value that is in something. Now this says right here, for instance, if a person says that this box contains a toy car, then the toy car is the value. But then if you put a toy dog in the box, then the value of that box is a toy dog. So that means that's a value type of a variable, or a data type. Now reference type that means that you would reference the box rather than what is in the box. So don't get too confused on these at this point. You'll learn a little bit more about those later on. Structure of language, there are lots of different data types. The ones we're going to use in this class: character, so that's going to be your alphanumeric, your words; a date and time data type; decimal data type; integer, so that can be up to 16 digits; single data type, this will be decimal points which don't have a specific value. But we won't deal with very many of these. But just so you know that there are lots of different data types, we're mostly going to be dealing with integers, int, and characters for our data types. Now there are such things as user-defined data types. These would be where the user would actually create a data type as they create the program. So user-defined data types could be the class, a delegate, or an interface. And you'll learn more about these later on. But just the only thing you need to know here is that we have those data types that we looked at on the previous screen, but a user can also create their own data types as they work with the program. But don't worry too much about that at this point. Here's a practice activity, a concentration game, so see what you remember about data types. Go through that. Here, the data type quiz. So that it's posted over here, and I also will have posted all the quiz previews are going to be in one document. You can see that on the left, all quiz previews, because all the quizzes have like 4 or 5 questions, so they're fairly short. So all quiz previews will be in one document for you to do the quizzes. Okay, that's section A. And let's take a look at section B. And before we go to section B, let's look at the write-up. And let's remember we did answer all these in section A. So section B, what is the variable? The 4 rules to declare a variable. To use a variable, what do you have to do with it first? It gives sample coding to declare a variable. So that's what we're going to learn in section B. So let's look at section B. Now we're starting to talk about variables. So variable in math is a container, like a variable like B or A or Z or D would hold something, right? Well, in programming, the same thing happens. A variable holds something until it is used. That's what we're going to learn about now. So the first question, or as we look into this, we're going to learn how variables are used in programming and learn the significance of variables. So if you look at this, what is a variable? Well, a variable is a measured characteristic or attribute that differs for different subjects, but that's kind of confusing, right? We want the variable for we want the definition of a variable for programming. So really, in programming, a variable is something that can be changed. So in programming, a variable is something that can be changed. So what this talks about up here, it says like this jar is a variable, because as you add money into it, then the value changes. If you take all the money out, then it can go down to 0, right? So again, in programming, a variable is something that can change. And as we look at variables, there are 4 rules you have to do. It has to start with a character only. It cannot start with a number. So you'd have a variable called A2, but you cannot have a variable called 2A. It can contain numbers or characters. It should be assigned a starting value such as 0. And you'll see how that works in programming. You start it with 0, that way it'll be empty until it's used. Then a variable should be assigned a data type. So declaring variables. Now, in order to use a variable, you have to declare it. So to use a variable, the first thing you must do is to declare it, which means you have to say, hey, I'm using the variable A to stand for amount. And you have to tell the computer that, then the computer is going to know, okay, I better put something in the variable A. That's how it works. So let's look at this. If you decide to put the value 5 as an integer in the variable A, this would be the coding line you would put in. Now dim, that's the command to use, that's the key word. That's the command to to declare a variable. So what this is saying is I am declaring, or I am making a an integer that equals 5. That's exactly what this line says. It's, hey computer, I'm making the letter a an integer equal to 5. So that's how you can create this. You can put the word integer, you can also put just int. So that's an example of how you would create a variable and give the variable a value. So if I wanted to make this, if I wanted the letter C to equal 25, I'd put dim C as integer equal 25. So you can see they're different, you can make changes to that. The process activity, so go through that, see what you know. And then, of course, you get to the variables quiz, that's right over here. And of course, the quiz previews are going to be all right here for you. Yes, that's section B. So let's go back to the write-up. Let's take a look here at the write-up. And it says, okay, we answered all of these. And this says give a sample coding to declare a variable b equal to 7. Well, if you remember in section B at the end, it showed how to declare letter A, the variable A, to start out as the number 5. So you should be able to make this into a statement also. Okay, section C. So section C, what is the purpose of an operator? Lists the 4 types of operators. So now we're getting into operators and what operators do. This talks about telephone operators back in the old days. Telephone operator, when a person needs to make a call, your call will go to the operator, then the operator will plug their phone line in to connect to the person that you wanted to call. So the operator made something happen when you placed a phone call. Well, in programming it's a little bit different, but what an operator does in programming is an operator makes things happen. So in this section, we're going to look at arithmetical operations and functions, relational operators, and increment, decrement, and the use of them in programs. We're going to look at different types of operators. So first, an operator in programming performs a function on a variable. So an operator makes something happen to a variable. So you need to keep that in mind. So it could be like add, subtract, multiply, divide, or whatever. And operators, we use operands for them. So add, subtract, multiply, divide, we'll use those as we do make the computer do different commands. Now there are different types of operators. There are 4 types. And I'm not talking about add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Those are mathematical operators. But the 4 types of operators are mathematical operators, meaning ones that perform math. Relationship operators, meaning ones that compare things to one another. Like this sign right here is less than or greater than or equal to. That's a relational operator, means it compares how things relate to one another. Logical operator, that would be true, false, yes, no. And then increment, decrement. Well, increment is going up, so increasing, that's increment. Decrement is going down, decreasing. So you could have an operator that would say add 10 every time the program runs. So it'd be 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. That's increment. Or you could have it where you say subtract 5 every time the program runs. And maybe the program starts at 100, then it would go 95, 90, 85, 80, 75, 70. So they'll increment and decrement, but these are the 4 types of operators. This is a little lesson about the arithmetic operators, and you can either listen to her talk or you can just scroll down below. But addition, of course, is to add 2 numbers together to get the sum or the total. So that's going to be the plus sign. Subtraction, as you guessed it, is subtract sign. Multiplication is the asterisk. Division is the slash. So you can read about all of those things here, and I assume you know how to use those in mathematics. And finally, there's modulo division, and this uses the percent sign. So that means divide, but this divides when there's going to be a remainder for a decimal. So even though the percent sign, it is division. So like right here, what it is used for is when a number divided by another number results in a decimal, meaning that it does not divide equally. And we'll learn more about that as we go along. Okay, a little bit more. Now here's a sample program. Pay attention to this. Look at how this program is created. First of all, you have to start every program with module 1, and you'll see when you start up your VB program, it puts those in for you. It also puts in the sub main, and then all your programming lines are going to be the ones right in here. So those are the lines you're going to put in, type in. So you can see that this program, it declares A and B as integers. It says, hey, the integer, the variable A is equal to 5, the variable B is equal to 10. This says declare C as an integer, so C equals A plus B, so C is going to equal 15. So in this prints, it's going to say write on the screen, that's what console means, on the screen, C. Well, C equals the number 15, doesn't it? Because it did this math. So if you ran this, it would write the number 15 on the screen. That's what this talks about. Now, this is important to know, to look at these lines, because you will be doing a program very similar to this shortly as an assignment. So this is doing an addition assignment. So again, declared variables, gave values to the variables, declared another variable for the answer, and then the program solved the problem, and then it printed the problem. Printed the answer, I should say. Now here's an assignment, subtracting two numbers. So look at the program on the previous page. Write the program in Notepad. So you're not going to be using your VB program yet. You're going to write it in Notepad. And we're going to do a number of things in Notepad, you'll see. But when you do this, yours are going to look very similar to this. Okay, very similar to this, except it's going to be subtraction, right? So you're going to make some changes, like right in these areas. So yours will look very similar to that. You're going to subtract one number from another. Now I would save this as fundamentals subtracting two numbers. That'd be a good file name, fundamentals subtracting two numbers. Relational, and we looked at arithmetic, meaning arithmetic. Now relational ones, you can listen to this or you can look at the copy of the script. Now we look at relational ones. This means comparing something to something else. So greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, not equal to. So you use comparison ones when you want to compare ages. Like right here, if you compare a brother and a sister where the brother's age is 12 and the sister's is 8, the result would be the brother is older, right? But if you want to check that, you could look at, B standing for brother is greater than S standing for sister. And you could do, if B is greater than S, then print B, print the number out. So what this talks about is how you use these types of commands to compare things. And once you make those commands and make those comparisons, then the program, the computer, does something based on the answers. So if B for brother is greater than S for sister, print B, right? So you can make the computer do that. I would recommend that you listen to this. So what you could do is you could open up that script, plus hit start here, listen to the avatar explain it as you read through it. Now the next operator is a logical. Logical means based on logic, based on the answers that you came up with. So if we look at this, logic can be done with if-then or an and. We'll use a lot of if-then in this class. So what this means is that if something is true, then do something else. Then if not, it's going to do something different. So let's look at this. So this says declare A and B as integers. A is equal to 5, B is equal to 10. If A or B equals 5, then this says right here, print on the screen, you gave me 5. Well, is A or B equal to 5? Yes, it is, so it's going to print, you gave me 5. Now if you go back through this and you put A equals 4, B equals 2, and then if you went through this, it would not print, you gave me 5. Program would just stop. So that's an if statement. And you can see how if statements work, if then, if, and then. They work together. They almost have to team up all the time. Now here's the program if they used and. So A is equal to 5, B is equal to 10. If A and B is equal to 5, then print this. Well, A and B are not both equal to 5, so then the program would just stop. It wouldn't do anything. It would not print, you gave me 5, because it was false. Increment and decrement. Now, increment and decrement, again, those are adding things together, or increasing things or decreasing things. Sorry about that. So, increment is so if you're going to move computers. Let's say you have 20 computers on the ground floor of a building and you need to move them all to the third floor. Well, you carry the first computer up, and then the third floor room would equal 1 computer. Then carry the second computer up, the third floor room would equal 2 computers. If you carried 2 at a time, then you'd go to 4, to 6, to 8, to 10, to 12, right? So you'd be incrementing by 2. That's incrementing, which is going up. Now, decrement is going down. So let's say you had 20 computers and you wanted to move them all to a different room, but keep track of how many you have in that original room. So you start with 20, and if your decrement is 5, then you take out 5 the first time, so it's going to be 20 minus 5 equals 15. So now you have 15 in that original room. Then you have 10 in the original room, then 5, then 0. Now the reason this is important, because increment and decrement are always done like this. Variable equals that original variable plus 1. Or plus 10 or plus 20, whatever the increment is going to be. So if a program would look at this, so right up above here you'd have x equals 0. You always zero it out. So then right here, x is going to be x plus 1. So right here, the value of x would change to 1. Then it would run through it again, the value of x would change to 2, to 3, to 4, unless you zeroed it out. And same thing down here, this would be decrement. This would mean that the value of x would go down by 1 every time. So that's the increment and decrement and how those work. Here's a practice activity to see what you remember about operators, so go through that. And here's the operators quiz. So again, operators quiz is right over here on the left, and you're going to use the all quiz previews right there. Okay, so that's section C. So let's go back to the Class Connect Writeup. And in section C, we did answer both of those questions. All right, let's get into section D, and we're almost finished with this. So section D, now we're going to look at statements. And statements are a way of telling the computer to do certain tasks. And we're going to look at flow control and loop statements. And statements are all about how the computer goes through doing different things. So flow control controls the flow of the program, meaning that as the program goes through its activities, program flow causes it to do certain things. We need to look at the write-up, don't we? Make sure we answer all these questions. So let's look at the write-up. Okay, for section D, what are statements in programming? What are the only 2 results that come from if-then? And how does a switch statement control program flow? So in programming, statements are commands given to the computer instructing it to do certain tasks. So statements make the computer do certain things. So that's what a statement is in programming. Now we're going to look at program flow. And program flow is it uses part of the if-then that we talked about earlier. So if something is true, then do this or do that. And here are some samples of program flow. There's if-then. So if something is true, then do something. If-then else means if something is not true, then do something else. Then there's a switch statement. So if-then. So let's take a look at this. Here's if-then on a flow chart. So you can see that this might be a flow chart if you want to check the water coming out of your faucet. So turn on the hot and cold water. So maybe you want to wash your hand or something. So you turn on the hot and cold water. Is it too hot or cold? Yes. Okay, then adjust them both. And you're just going to go back through this. So this is, if it is too hot or cold, then adjust. Now if it's not too hot or cold, then you're going to wait for 2 minutes. Did you get enough water? No. Then you're going to keep going. So this will be like if you're filling up a bucket or something like that. Then finally, did you get enough water? Yes. Then you're going to turn it off and that ends. So you can see how if-then, that's this decision right here. This makes if-then decisions twice. Now the one thing you can see is that if-then, well, you'll see it down here as we do this. So let's look at this. There's another if-then. So declare A and B as integers. A is 5, B is 10. If A equals 5, then write the word true. So in this case, it would write the word true, correct? Now if we switch these around, if A equals 10, B equals 5, it would not write the word true. So that's how if-then statements. And if-then statements only work off of like yes, no, or true, false. So you can see that. So if it goes down here and asks this question, is it true? Yes, it goes this way. Is it false? Then it'll go this way. So true, false are the way that if-then statements work. So it's almost like yes, no. Now here's if-then else. So if-then else is again another flow, so you want to listen to it and read the script as you go along. So if-then else, so if you look at this, here's a brother who's 16 and a sister who's 10. We want to compare their ages. Now pay attention to this because you're going to do a program later that has you compare ages. So the control statement we're going to use is if-then else. When we compare their ages, see the brother is 6 years older than the sister. And then the program becomes a decision-making statement. It's going to have some code. Now if you look at the presentation, it goes through the code. So the program will run the check on the condition. If it is true, then the program will run the true block. If it is false, then it will run the false block. The program checks for the variable which has the highest value, whether it is variable A or B, then it will print variable A or it will print variable B. So let's take a look at this. We're going to look at this for this person. And remember, you're going to do a presentation just like this. So I'll go to the next slide. So as we go through this, now we're going to see how the program is written, how the syntax of the if-then-else is used to compare ages and look at the true or false blocks that they have. So let's take a look at this. Now this didn't do the ages, but you can see how the if-then-else. So let's pretend, so it declared A and B as integers, A equals 5, B equals 10. If A is greater than B, then write the value of A, so it would write possibly that. If it's not, then write this, and then the whole thing ends. So in this example, if A is greater than B, well, is A greater than B? No, it is not, so it does not do this line. It goes down here, and it's going to print out the number 10. So this is comparing two numbers. Let's compare ages. So let's say A stands for the girl who was 10, I think, and B stands for the boy who was 16. If A is greater than B, then write the number 10 for that girl's age, else write the number 16 for the boy's age. So this is comparing ages of two people. We just changed that to compare ages of two people. You can actually think of this is comparing your sister named Abby to your brother named Billy. Abby is 5 years old, Billy is 10 years old. If A is greater than B, then write Abby's age, else write Billy's age. Well, this would write Billy's age on the screen, wouldn't it? So that's the programming that you would use to compare two numbers to one another, like two people's birth dates or ages, different things like that. Now, the reason I went in that so far is you're going to have to do that later on. Now, a switch statement makes the program switch based on the different cases or whatever happens to the program. So what a switch statement does is it checks for values and then makes the program do certain things. So what I would have on the Class Connect Writeup, the switch statement redirects the program flow to a particular case when needed, or to a particular place in the program. So if we take a look at this, this is the program above. The days of the week are numbered. So case 1 is Monday, case 2 is Tuesday, case 3 is Wednesday, case 4 is Thursday, etc. Now there's a switch that says assign the value 5 something when it comes to it. So if you look at this right here, it says declare switch on as integer 5. So what that means is, hey program, when you come to the number 5, then make the program run. So this program will run through here, and then it'll come down here to number 5, and then it says, hey, this tells me to print the word Friday. So this will print the word Friday. Because what you're telling up here is to go through this and print the number Friday. Now, if we had this switch out of here, then it would print Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and no day like this. It would print all of those because all those lines say print it. But this switch statement up here tells it, hey, go find the number 5 and then print then do whatever you're supposed to do there. So again, it goes down to 5's case 5, and then it prints the word Friday, so the word Friday would end up showing up on the screen. Now don't worry about all these things, exit, select, and sub and all that. You'll learn about those later on. But the point of this is how you can make a program go to a particular place and skip all types of commands and then go to a particular place based on the number, based on the variable, and then do whatever it's supposed to right at that place. So that's the switch statement. A flow control assignment. So in this one, what they want you to do is find the oldest person between you and the one other individual. So you're going to use the if then else. So you're going to use your age, and maybe you can use one of your parents or your best friend or something. So you'd go back to this one, the if then else, and you're going to go back to this program. And remember, I gave you that example of, the girl named Abby and the boy named Bobby. So you're going to use the program very. So that's the program you're going to do for that. So this one you would call fundamentals flow control. So you write a short program, and you're just going to go ahead and do this in Notepad. Now looping statements. Looping statements make things happen based on what if the loop is satisfied or not. It makes things repeat or not repeat. So for example, we're talking before about moving computers from one room to another. You carry one computer at a time until all the computers were moved, right? So you would continue to repeat it until they are all gone, until the first room equals 0 computers. So that's going to be there's a for while and do while, or for while and then do while. And you'll see what these mean and how they count. So the for statement. The for statement uses the keyword for. And in the for statement, what this does is it gives value to something, but makes things happen based on what that value is as it changes. Let's look right here. So for I is an integer, 0 to 10, step 1. So what this means is that first make I equal 0, then it runs through here and it's going to print the number 0. Then it's going to go back up. This is for next. Then it goes back up and it finds the for statement. So I was first 0. Now it goes through here and it says step 1, so that adds to it. So now I is now going to be 0 plus 1 or 1. Then it would write the number 1 because that's I. Then it goes next I and it goes again. Then it says, okay, I is an integer. Now, of course, I already stepped up to 1. Now I is going to equal 2. Then it's going to print the number 2. So imagine on a computer screen, you'd see the number 0, number 1, number 2. It would go through here until I equaled 10, and then it would print the number 10, and then it would stop because this line right here told it to do it 10 times. Now, if we had step 5 through here, it would print the number 0, then it would print the number 6, or then it would print the number 5, then the number 10. If we had step 2 in here, it would print 0, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. If we had the number 3 in here, then it would print 0, 3, 6, 9. So you can see how for and next work together. Statements. The while condition, this makes something happen while something else is happening. So in this case, this says make I an integer equal to 0, and as long as I is less than 50, then write the number and increase it by 10 each time. So as this goes through, the first time I equals 0, so it prints the number 0, then right here it adds 10 to it. So then it goes right here. 10 is less than 50, it writes the number 10, then it adds 10 more to it. 20 is less than 50, it writes the number 20, adds 10 more to it. 30 is less than 50. So this statement right here would write on the screen 10, 20, 30, 40, and I don't know if, and it wouldn't do 50. It would just go up to 40 because 50 would not be less than 50. So this would give you lines to show you how to print numbers in different increments. So that prints in different increments. Now if we had, while I was less than 100, then of course this would go 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, all the way up to 90, right? If we had I plus 5 right here, then it would do 0, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45. So you can see how that can work. So that's increment. Now there's do while, and do while is similar. The difference is that in a do while, the exit condition is the end of the loop. So in the do while, it will continue doing it, and then once it completes, then it exits. So do while is going to be a little bit different from the do command that we used earlier. Now this prints the numbers from 0 to 10 in ascending order, meaning it starts at 0, and then it increments by 1, and then this just works through this whole loop and counts up to 10. So if x is less than or equal to 10, then it's going to, eventually it will stop looping. Assignment do while. Use your knowledge of programming, write a program to print the value of a series of numbers from 0 to 9 in descending order. Write your code in Notepad. So this would print the numbers from 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So you start at 9, descending order. So you start at 9 and you're going to go backwards down to 0. So what you're going to look at to do that one is going to be a program similar to this. As you remember, this counted up. I think that's the one that, actually this is the one you would use. Remember, this counted up, this stepped 1 every time, and it started I equals 0 to 10. Well, to do it going backwards, you'd have I integer equals 9 to 0, step -1. And then it would print 9 the first time, then it would print 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, etc. So 9 to 0, step -1. So we'll step backwards. So that's the assignment for this one, for the do while. Numbers 9 to 0, descending order. Now statements quiz. So statements quiz, over here of course, statements quiz and quiz previews right up above there. Okay, now we're moving on to section E. In section E, you use the console write line method to print where does the output get sent. So let's go to section E. And in section E, you're going to look at compiling a program. So that's what you have to do. You write it and then you have to compile it. So in section E, we're going to learn how to write a program, understand how to compile and execute. So that's the two things a program has to do. And here's a really good discussion of writing a program. Here's the text for it. And as you write this program, again, what I would suggest, you have this script open, then you could also watch the video and read the script at the same time. To understand it better. Now in this program, you're just going to print the words "Happy World" on the screen. And you'll see when you start working with Visual Express, this presentation will show you how to open it and do all of that. It automatically calls it Module 1, and submain is going to be in there automatically. So you're going to declare a variable, then the variable is going to be called input, and we're going to write this on the screen. So when you run this, once the input is received, it runs through the conditional statement. If you input the number 1, it prints Happy World using console write line method. What console write line method is, this means write on the console screen, on the computer screen. So that's what console write line means, is to write on the computer screen. Now this is going to walk you through, as you watch that presentation, it'll walk you through Visual Studio Express to create the program, give you all the steps to do that. So once you enter the code, you have to compile it. To compile and execute the program, select the debug menu. So right at the top of your screen, you'll hit debug, then start debugging. And debugging, that tells you whether you have errors or not. And then the program is going to ask for user input. You can input any number you want, but if you input the number 1, then it's going to print the words Happy World on the screen. So that's what this is going to do. It'll walk you through how to do that. And the reason you need to know how to do that is because this is going to have you print, as a follow-up to this, you're going to create a program that will print your name and your favorite sports team on the screen. So you'll use a program very similar to one that you did on the screen previously that prints the words "Hello World." Instead, you're going to make it print your name and your favorite sports team. And it can do these in the same line. It could print, John Broncos. So you're going to make it print automatically. Now you're going to do this in Visual Basic is it says you're going to send me the .vb file. So when you name it, it'll create a .vb file. So you attach that .vb file so I can open it and look at it. So that's the practice for this. And then we have a big fundamentals project. And I'm going to create a separate presentation for this fundamentals project because it's been about 50 minutes. That's a long time to sit. So I'll create a separate program for this. And this you're going to do a couple of math programs. And I'll probably adjust that to where you just be required to do one and you get extra credit if you do two. So this will be in a different recording. Then finally the unit exam. Of course, I'll have the unit exam preview on the left over here. So let's go back to the beginning of the course. There's a lot to be done this week. You're getting into programming now, but you have your write-up that you'll do. Then you have the keyword assignment, variables quiz. You have the program to subtract two numbers, the operators quiz, and I would bet that you could do, I would do the write-up. Like on Tuesday, I'd do the write-up and the keyword. I would do this work on Tuesday. Wednesday, I'd go in and do these things. Then Thursday, I could do this. Then Friday, I could do this. So this write-up's going to take you probably about an hour, a little over an hour. And the quiz and the keyword assignment might take you 15 minutes or so. The data types quiz. So this might be about an hour and a half. This might be at the most, this might be 45 minutes. Then this might be another hour, and this might be, maybe a couple of hours. So I would think that 6 to 7 hours this week, you could get all this work done at the maximum. But please save the names of these assignments just as I suggested to you. Okay, that's all I have for this recording. I will put the other recording for that 100-point assignment, I'll put it in here as an example for you. Okay, that's all. Thanks for listening. Bye.